Hello, everybody, and happy Monday morning. It's 11 a.m. here in Arizona. And I know, Jacqueline, you're in Pacific Standard Time too, right?
Yes, I am. Yeah.
Yeah. So for some of you, it might be the afternoon already, and you're halfway through your day. So congratulations on having a strong Monday morning. And I love to bring my members forward on Monday mornings to give you guys tips, to give you guys opportunities, to teach each one of you something that maybe you didn't know yesterday or last week going into a new week. I know I love to learn something new every Monday and be able to take that into my week, because then I share that with my clients and they appreciated it as well. What I learn, I pass down. But there is this wall, right, Jacqueline, that a lot of women run into. And that wall that they run into is called fear. And when I met you, I was so impressed by you, Jacqueline, because you were doing the fearless factor, right? And facing the fear and how to be strong in the face of fear, right? When we're facing fear. Talk to me a little bit about that project you did and tell all of our listeners a lot about who you are, where you came from, and what you've been working on.
Well, thank you for this. So fear, yeah, everybody has fears. It's an emotion. It's what happens when we get uncertain. It's when we get anxious. The fear shows up. And we build stories around that fear in terms of what it's supposed to be and what it's doing to us and so on and so forth. And I came to this fear thing, which I am so passionate about. It's like helping women specifically understand fear is an emotion, it's a driver for change. And how do we get beyond it? And why am I passionate about it? Because my entire life was steeped in fear. And that started at a very early age when I grew up in a family where there was a tremendous amount of violence and alcoholism and all kinds of stuff. And you learn to run and hide at a very early age. And that was me. And of course, what that does to you is it sucks the life out of you, frankly,
Yeah.
and creates a real problem with self-esteem, with confidence, and with the willingness to take risks. And of course, I went the other way and I took a lot of risks, but they were risks in the wrong direction. I got into all kinds of trouble from teenage years onwards. And it wasn't until I was in my mid 30s when I was actually pregnant for the third time. And the first two I had, gone on from. I had first one for adoption, the second one left with his father. So here I am pregnant again for the third time. And I finally got that I needed to change my life, that I really needed to clean up my act and figure out what were the fears that were getting in my way and what were the fears that were running the stories of who I thought I was and how could I be different with that. And it really was, the whole thing about this was I needed to be a better parent to my children. That was a primary driver for it. How can I be a role model for their lives so that they become successful people? And now that I've got 4 adults in my life, I can tell you they're all very successful. And we have great relationships across the board. So fear is a real fundamental issue for a lot of people. And when we get caught up in our fears, when we start believing in the stories that we tell ourselves about you're not smart enough, you're not good enough, you're not capable, you're not, whatever the story is you want to tell yourself, you have to hold it up to the light and ask yourself, is it true? Because if it isn't true, if you have no empirical evidence that it's true, then you've got to examine the stories. And of course, that's what my programs and books are all about. Examination, self-examination, because without the examination, you continue to create the stories that hold you in their spell and really limit the life that you want to lead. So I get excited about this, as you can tell. I've helped hundreds and thousands of people over the years between the books and the events and the coaching and the workshops, all the rest of it. And I really do feel that there is a piece here. And we as women, we need to rise up. We need to take care of those stories that are holding us back, because the women in the world, we need you right now, frankly.
Mm-hmm.
We need more women to take authority. And you don't take authority when you're constantly doubting yourself. So
Yeah.
that's the big picture on where I'm coming from. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Jacqueline. I appreciate that. I was so honored when you asked me, that was when we first met, to be part of your Fearless Factor project that you were working on and the books that you did. Talk to them a little bit about where that project came from. Obviously, we know where it came from, but what was that project that you
So
put together?
I interviewed you for a book called The Fearless Factor: Women Leading the Way. And the reason for that is because, again, I'm passionate about women leaders. I want women to really take charge because, frankly, and I've said this aloud many times, the men have really screwed up the world big time, and women have remained silent for too long. And so it's enough already. So I interviewed over 80 women for this new book, and they
Yeah.
were all highly accomplished, just like you, Colleen. And I asked 5 questions. The first question is, where has fear limited your opportunity? The second question is, what is the greatest contributor to your success? And the third question was, what legacy do you want to leave in the world? And number 4 was, what's your vision for the next 3 years? And number 5 was, what's your fearless factor? Now, that question always got people going in terms of, what do you mean by that? Well, what I mean is, when fear shows up in your life, what do you do? Do you barrel through it? Do you take a different attitude? What is the driver? Because, like I like to say, is fear matters to your success because it's
Yep.
a driver for growth. So, those 5 questions were asked of all 80 women. And in time, I will be spending some time putting that together as a kind of a guidebook for you to think about. You know, we don't become successes overnight, and we all have obstacles that we have to overcome, but we've also got a lot we can celebrate, and there's a lot of things that we're doing in the world that are making a difference. And when we can sit down and we can really analyze that, when we can examine it and see the impact that we've been having, that's really the gift that I want to bring with this book, is that, look at their stories, and there's some really challenging stories there, including my own. And I always share my own stories in every one of my books: The Fearless Factor, The Fearless Factor at Work, and now this third Fearless Factor book. And all the time, it's always going to be about, ask yourself the questions. I'm big on questions. People say, I want to find the answers. I say, let's ask the great questions. Then you'll find the answers.
Yes. And by asking those questions, like what fear has limited, your abilities. I was reading in a book this morning, Jacqueline, during my, morning ritual, my 5 a.m. morning ritual. And it was talking about you being on stage and everyone you cared about and all of your possible clients and people that you work with, or maybe your managers, right? I have a lot of people on my LinkedIn right now that could be watching this that are in corporate America. So they have managers and so they're all in the room, and you are on stage declaring, I am awesome. I know exactly what I'm talking about, and I deserve to get paid what the value of what I deliver is worth without discounts. And they say to close your eyes, and what do you see in the audience? How do you feel? Are you scared? Is it hard for you to declare that? Do you shrink back a little bit? And I find that as I go through these exercises, there's even times when I'm going to the next level or doing something new that I've never done before, I feel a little bit of that hesitancy. And that's fear that's limiting my greatest abilities. And I want to ask all the listeners today, what are those fears that are limiting your abilities? You have so much ability from your experience, your knowledge, your skill set, your past, right? Every experience we've ever been through. What are you allowing that fear to limit for what you're really able to do? When you ask someone if you could have anything in the world that you want or be able to do anything in the world that you want, they're like, really? Yeah, you can do anything. What is it? They have no problems visualizing what's possible. Then you say, why haven't you reached it yet? Or what's holding you back? And they're like, I don't know. Either I don't know something, I'm scared to do it, right? There's all these excuse. And I thought that was just really interesting that I read that the morning of our interview at the time when we were going to be doing this interview today, Jacqueline, because women and men, not just women, need to realize that if you aren't reaching the goals that you set for yourself, if you are not um successfully acquiring those things and aren't finding the ways to do that, then there's something holding you back. And, a little quote that I had this morning on my desk said, if I would have put the same amount of time and focus into freaking out about not having money or cutting back my expenses or finding deals or haggling or all these things, right? Then I would have been driving a car, that was an amazing 10 years ago versus today, because we focus on the things that we can't do versus focusing on the things we can do. Let's talk about that for a minute, Jacqueline. Focus
Yeah,
on the things
that's a big
we can
one
do.
right there. I mean, I think the self-limiting beliefs are really the key to this,
Yeah.
and those self-limiting beliefs are really what holds us back. So yes, I might have a very big vision, but I in some way believe that I'm really not capable of achieving that. Even if I can fantasize about wanting it, there's that voice inside of me that says, yeah, right, go lots of luck on that one. And we've all experienced that. I mean, as entrepreneurs, and even for people who are in the corporate world who are striving to gain more authority in it, and I want to talk about that in a second. But the whole idea is you have to examine those, and I keep coming back to that word: examine your self-limiting beliefs. It's a lot of what my work is all about. My website, for instance, I have a download called The Inner Game, and it's a 20-page PDF that is designed to get you thinking about your self-limiting beliefs and how you can start to change the stories that you are telling yourself, and not to be in the blame game or the judgment game,
Right.
staying out of your own way, because again, we can judge ourselves very harshly. And how can we help ourselves to be much more compassionate with self? Because that becomes another piece of being able to say, yes, I can. And I like to think of improv, for instance. It's a yes and, that's the drill. Yes and you're engaged in a narrative. So what story do you want to build? What narrative of your life do you want to create? And as a writer and a storyteller, this becomes a really critical issue for all of us. And we're all storytellers.
Yeah.
Stories we tell ourselves, the stories we tell other people, the stories that we take out into the world as our sense of who we are. And so when you ask the question, who do you think you are? Now, when we were growing up, when somebody said, who do you think you are? Change the tone on that, and it becomes, who do you think you are? Who would you like to be? If you had nothing in the way of who you want to be, nothing, not your negative thinking, not your self-evaluation that limits who you are, then what would that leap be to truly bring the magnificence of your full self out into the world? And I mentioned earlier the word authority. There's a great book out there that everyone should read, a woman should read. It's called The Authority Gap. The Authority Gap. And every woman should read this, because this is a woman who wrote it. She's a Financial Times writer, a journalist, and she did an amazing amount of research on the reasons why women specifically don't claim their authority. And there's a lot to fight against. Let's get that straight. But we have to be partners in the conversation with our male counterparts, because half the time they're completely oblivious about what we're going through, because we don't share it, because we're insecure, because we don't want to reveal our vulnerabilities. So I say, get vulnerable, have the conversations, see where it takes you. As we like
Right.
to say, be fearless, see where it gets you. That's my
Yeah.
line. Yeah.
And I know you work with big corporations as well. What do you find in working with the teams within these corporations? Where's the main focus, Jacqueline?
The main focus a lot is on communications. And I think that's the big one right there. In teamwork, what I find is that, first of all, you've got to build empathy between the participants.
Yeah.
And I like to do small groups, but I've had teams where you've obviously got people who are resistant to making any kind of changes. Well, you've got to try to figure out a way to bring them into the conversation. And that then becomes a much more honest conversation, because too many times our communication is couched in language that is really about deflection. It's really not about revealing what's really going on. So I teach my teams how to have honest conversations.
Yeah.
And sometimes they're damned uncomfortable.
Oh,
But
yeah.
uh, as I like to say, get comfortable being uncomfortable, because that is the only way we grow.
That's right. You
Yeah.
have to be willing to change. And I'm going to show a link, and I'm going to drop this in Facebook for all of you and in LinkedIn, which is a masterclass on June 21st that Jacqueline's doing. That's on what are you willing to change? And, this goes all the way back to T. Harv Eckerd's, The Millionaire Mind. It goes all the way back to all these books, Think and Grow Rich. And they always ask the question, so how's it working for you so far? And if it's not working for you the way you thought it would, then what are you willing to change? And why is change something that so many people fight against, right? Because it's the unknown. But unless we're willing to change and do things differently than we've never done in the past, we're always going to be where we are today.
100%.
Always.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, people want to know that they're status quo. I mean, let's look at the last 2 years. The last 2 years I've really, thrown everything up in the air, and we've had to get very clear on our priorities, what matters to us, and what's our relationship to other people, because everything has changed at this point in time. But people want to stay in the zone of, I know this. But if you don't go into the I don't know this, then you learn nothing. Like you get up at 12 o'clock in the morning because you want more information. You want to add to your knowledge base. But it's not just adding to the knowledge base. It's about, how can I think differently in order to take different actions? Mm-hmm. And when I take those different actions, that's where the opportunities and the possibilities lie. Yeah. So one of the things I say to people is, when did you last show some curiosity? I'm curious about why I feel that way. I'm curious about why I insist on doing things that way. I'm curious about what is that relationship and what does it mean to me? There's a curiosity factor that we must put into play. And maybe one of these days I'll write a book about the curiosity factor. Yeah. Because I think that's another thing. Get curious about your fear. Yes. Get damn curious about everything, because as adults, we stop asking questions, unlike children who are also always, and we've all had kids, you and I, and you look at it and they're always going, why, what's that about? And then finally you get really tired of it and you go, just because, shut up, leave me alone. But as adults and school and so forth, we get curiosity taken out of us because we're not allowed to keep asking questions.
I'm going to give my secret sauce away here for business coaching, Jacqueline, but 9 times out of 10, well, mostly 10 out of 10, my clients that I work with, it's not that they're incapable of building these successful businesses. It's that they just don't know something.
Yes.
That's all it is. Yeah. They just don't know something. Yeah. And then when they know, they know. Now I say, then what are you going to do with it now that you know? Yeah. Right? Yeah. So that's really what it comes down to. We want to be willing to change, then we have to be curious, like you said, to ask the questions of what is it that I don't know right now? Where's the gap? What is it that I need to learn? Everyone's looking for the silver bullet. Well, that's part of the silver bullet that you're looking for, that magic pill, which is something you don't know. It's not that you're an idiot. It's not that you're stupid. It's not that you're not able to be successful. It's not that you didn't do everything right. It's that there's just a missing link. There's something you don't know. Yeah. And so what I love about this masterclass, and by the way, you guys, I'm enrolled. What you'll love about this masterclass is, what are you willing to change? What in your life are you willing to change today to do things differently if you're not where you want to be today? What is it? So I highly recommend that everyone sign up for this masterclass. Easy peasy. Click on the link. It'll be dropped everywhere so you can enroll very easily. Jacqueline's been doing this for decades, y'all. She knows what she's doing. She's worked with huge companies on getting communication in teams, bringing teams to the next level of productivity. If you want to go to the next level of productivity, if you want to face fears, if you want to be able to break through them, then you want to follow in the footsteps of someone who's already done it. That's the key. You want to follow in the footsteps of someone who's already done it and can teach you how to do it, because that is the missing piece holding you back right there. That's it. It's just what you don't know.
Well said. Well
Yeah.
said. Yeah, and it's true. I mean, we all have, things that we don't know. We know what we know, and we talk about the fixed versus the growth mindset. The growth mindset is always like, I kind of know what I don't know. And again, I'm going to go back to the word curious about, let's figure out what is that missing piece.
Yep.
And I think that's definitely been a very big piece of my life is what is it I'm not getting that I need to get. And that's
Yeah.
why we have coaches. That's why we have teachers and mentors and so forth, because they're the ones who can hold up the mirror, hold up the light, and
That's
let
right.
you see into the darkness of your mind that is absolutely stopping you from getting what you want. And we all
That's
want to
right.
be hugely successful, and it's not necessarily about all the tangible stuff. It's about how do we feel inside as a success.
Yeah.
And I definitely feel my success internally, and I know for damn sure you do too, Colleen. So,
Yes.
and a lot of the other people listening to this. So think of success not so much as what can I get, but
Yes.
what can I get for me to be better than I am. That's
Absolutely.
success. Yeah.
So Mitch just commented, "Hey Mitch, I just dropped the link again. I think it should work now. Hopefully you shouldn't have any issues. I put the link in the chat, so I will drop it again in the other chat so that you have that, so that you guys can sign up. And we're going to be back here next Monday, motivating you again, for each one of you to step into something that maybe is uncomfortable to you. But that's why I do these Member Monday spotlights, to bring our members forward, to educate you on something that you've not been educated on before, for you to have the opportunity to expand who you are, expand your businesses, and step into the spotlight for a change for yourself, right? And face those fears. So once more, Jacqueline Whales, you can go to JacquelineWhales.com. You can go find her on LinkedIn at Jacqueline Whales. And of course, I put the link in here for the June 21st. And you guys can click on this Introduction to Transformational Strategies for Success. This is going to give you the chance to ask the questions, what do I need to change? And Mitch Austin, we will see you there. Jacqueline's welcoming you with open arms, and she wants you to be able to enroll and register for that. So Jacqueline, wonderful having you here today. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for being here. You are a powerhouse when it comes to the fearless factor. I'm so glad we could spotlight you today.
Thank you. My pleasure. And thank